我唔知，我哋係收到 call， 我哋嚟嘅，究竟要嚟幾耐咧？我睇唔到表啊 ，sorry 啊。我心呢個過嚟講事啊，hello，我都唔想係啊，我哋沙條嘅幫忙令到我哋。
好，第二節嘅離地新聞，我係 Titus 啦。咁啊，今日咧我哋有呢一個World Uyghurs Congress 嘅加拿大代表sorry 阿 Memet Tohti 咧就係喺我哋當中嘅，咁樣咧，咁我哋今日咧就繼續咧討論China Cable 嗰個中國嘅嗰個嘅電文咧，咁就講呢個新疆嘅嗰個嘅再教育營嘅。Once again 我哋嘅英文字幕咧會喺24小時內會放上去嘅，咁樣。For the second part, I would like to ask something different. Yeah, because other than the menu, which is 9 pages, there are 4 bulletins, so-called, including some element talking about kidnapping Uyghurs from outside of East Turkestan, or we call it Singjai, into the region and get into the re-education camp. So how does it happen actually?
If you remember, starting the 2017, early 2017, the regional Communist Party of regional branch, they issued the policy for confiscating all passports from Uyghurs. And that was the beginning. So passports were confiscated from all Uyghurs, preventing them to escape to outside. Actually, that was the beginning of mass internment. So Chinese government did not want that Uyghurs go outside and talk this story about. And the part of this policy is for those Uyghurs who are living abroad, for studying or doing business or vacation or some other purposes. So July 2017, somehow the Egyptian government started to deport more than 500 Uyghur students to China upon the request of Chinese government. And after that deportation, 1 or 2 weeks later, Chinese delegation visited Egypt and offered $1.2 billion investment. And then we knew that it was kind of trade deal. Return the Uyghurs back, and they gave this money. So this is not the new policy for Chinese government. If you dig a little bit search, you find out when some Uyghurs released from Guantanamo, wrongly detained there, the Pakistanis sold those Uyghurs to US for $5,000 when September 11th happened and the US warplanes just distributed flyers for any foreigners. If you hand it over, we give money. So Pakistanis, they are from China, should be foreigners, let's turn them to U.S. for $5,000. And they stayed in Guantanamo a number of years, and then U.S. court-martial just concluded that those people, they were at the wrong place at the wrong time, and they got nothing to do with terrorism, and they're ready to be released. So when U.S. tried to release them, Chinese government blocked each and every country from accepting them. So the Palau and a number of countries accepted those Uyghurs, and also Chinese government blackmailed some countries, offering money not to accept. So Chinese government's trade-in policy for Uyghur refugees has a long history. And from Central Asia, for example, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, Uyghurs are frequently deported back to China. And immediately Chinese government provided some cash or a military vehicle or some kind of loans. And it happened to some other countries as well in Middle East. Especially after Chinchango's arrival in late 2016 and the beginning of this internment camp Tsang in 2017. We've seen more. And now the Uyghurs really afraid to travel. And some Uyghurs directly received a call from the local police officers. Okay, if you do not come back, your parents' life would be in danger. So some of them returned and disappeared. Gulgina Tashmehmet, she's the PhD student in Malaysia. She received a call from Chinese government and threatened her if she fails to come back, then her parents would be at risk. And so she was afraid and they went back. She's gone missing. Still, we don't know where is she or whether she's alive or dead. So that kind of hostage-taking policy became very common. Not only for the Uyghurs living in weaker or smaller countries, even the Western democratic countries like US, Canada, and Europe. It didn't work that well in the Western countries because they have a certain check and a balance and certain rights protected in those countries. But Chinese government never give up applying pressure on those countries directly or indirectly by using some agents of the state or taking hostage of their family members or confiscating their passports or denying the extension of the passports or refusing to issue a document for newborn children and making them as stateless. So this policy has a number of dimensions, not only forcing them to return back, at the same time forcing them to be stateless. Because what are you going to do when your passport is expired? You go to Chinese consulate or embassy for extension, and they cut your passport, give one-way travel document, just valid to travel to China. And if you do not, or if you refuse that, you become stateless because China, you don't have any ID documents in your possession. So that kind of policy just continued till now. And now, because of the leakage of the secret document and because of the many, many living examples of those Uyghurs who returned back to China and never came back or disappeared, so now the Uyghurs, we know that we cannot go back. And also we don't go to Chinese, many Uyghurs do not go to Chinese embassy or consulate to extend their their passports because anyway, they cut your passports.
What can they do if they cannot extend their Chinese passport then? What they are going to do?
So, and the thing is, in some countries, they have a well in place protection system, asylum system. And some countries, they don't. And we know it depends the countries to countries, right? In some countries in the Middle East or Turkey or some other places, they are mostly dependable to China, or they would like to have a good relationship with China to leverage their relationship against the US and the Western countries. So they don't like to lose the China. So for Uyghurs, it is really difficult to make the asylum case in those countries. And if they do not get the extension from the passports, they become stateless.
So I heard that Turkey is one of the forefront country that voice out about the situation in East Turkestan. But does that change, especially after the Erdogan become more centralize his power or something like that, because I think he's not going to be controlled by the European Union and United States anymore. He's more rely on Russia and sometimes China.
Yeah. You're absolutely right on this. And since 2012, especially Erdogan gripped on all the power on his hand, and centralized power, you are rightfully called. And Erdogan basically derailed from EU, European Union, NATO, and Western alliances, and approached much closer to Russia and China for economic or security interest, they called. And that kind of policy shift made Uyghurs vulnerable. Because there are a certain number of the population, sizable Uyghur population live in Turkey. And so far, the unofficial, according to unofficial reports, more than 30 Uyghurs deported to China from Turkey. With various cover, just it is not open deportation. Well, we did not deported directly to China, but we deported to Tajikistan. But when plane landed in Tajikistan, and the Chinese security agents just waiting at the airport to receive them. So it is kind of trade-in.
Okay.
So now the Turkey needs more cash to run its economy, turn around its economy, and that cash, the Turkey is expecting that coming from China. And for that reason, Turkey is quite vulnerable. That vulnerability affects the daily life of Uyghurs as well, because they don't have any protection. So this deportation of Uyghurs, it became a quite profitable business for some countries, just like Central Asia and the Middle East and some others. And because when they deport the Uyghurs, they receive certain amount of cash money from China. China made it very clear, there is a business here. If you need the cash, do it as I said. So this is quite common practice right now.
I see a lot of parallel on the East Turkestan situation and the other situation, like the trade deal with the USA, as well the situation in Hong Kong as well. That's why I interviewed you in this podcast. That's
just if
in
you
Hong
remember,
Kong.
just the whole the protest in Hong Kong also just started just because of the extradition bill. So when you have an extradition bill signed with the Hong Kong, so what does it mean is the many offenses that Chinese governments see as dangerous may not be as dangerous in Hong Kong. For example, freedom of speech. We can curse any person in Canada or Hong Kong. But if you say anything against Xi Jinping, you are in trouble in China. So when China applies its standard to Hong Kong, then everyone in Hong Kong could be in trouble, because there is a certain amount of opposition to state powers in democratic societies. Because state is powerful, state has a prison, state has an army, state has a court, all power is concentrated at the hand of the state. So citizens or a member of society, we have only one mouth to speak. And if we are not allowed to speak, then, or if we speak, just our simple way of expression of our own freedom of speech poses a danger for our life, then what's the meaning of this life to live? And we shouldn't live within the frame that designed by Communist Party. We are free people. We have to speak up of our mind. And if we see or think anything wrong, we have to say it. That is the nature of human being. But that is not the nature of Chinese Communist Party. There is indoctrination. There is this one line of truth that is owned by Chinese Communist Party. If you goes out of that official line, you are in trouble.
So parties say it is right, then it is right.
It is party state. That's the reason we call it. What our party says, it's the policy of the state. So there is no any say, or there is no any room for ordinary people to contribute to their own the policy that affects their own life. So that is what the Chinese Communist Party wanted from the people in Hong Kong, and Hong Kongers rightfully stood up to their rights. And so outside world we could see the picture clearly, and people in Hong Kong see the picture so clearly what is going on. Otherwise, abduction not only happened for Uyghurs. One shop owners, bookstore owners, arrested and abducted, and appeared in somewhere in mainland China.
Yeah, and they're confessing.
Yeah, confessed their crime just for selling a book.
Yeah.
Right? And so we want everything based on rule and the law. And the state is not a mafia. The CCP is acting like a mafia, just abducting people from foreign soil and then bring to mainland China with underground ways, unofficial ways, and then forcing them with torture to confess the crime that never committed. It is not the way of free society. So at this point, I have to salute the people of Hong Kong for their firm stand on freedom.
Talking about people being kidnapped, actually, you know, we all know that there are two Michaels is now being detained in China, but there is also one person, which is
Singjai.
Yeah, he is a Canadian Uyghurs. He's being detained in China as well. Can you brief us a little bit about the updates about him and his family?
There's no any update about the fate of Singjai, and he was abducted from Uzbekistan in 2006. And then China, the Chinese embassy in Ottawa said, "Oh, we are not interested to this gentleman," when Canadian government approached to Chinese embassy. And then after 1 month, he appeared on Chinese court and sentenced to life imprisonment for so-called separatism. Come on. If that, I know that gentleman, he has 4 kids and is still growing up in the Burlington, Ontario. One of his oldest son is just handicapped, where her wife also living in Burlington. We are ordinarily men. Basically, the purpose of Chinese government just to arrest him, abduct him, and send to life imprisonment is hit one bird to scare the rest. That was the tactic.
So he do nothing, basically.
He did nothing. He just
what did he do so that he deserved
what he can
to be
do
detained?
in Canada. What he can do in Canada. As far as I know, China is not separated. China stays the same. So there is no any crime committed, as China said. He split the country. Which part of the country split? As far as I know, China says as it is. So there is no crime committed here. And he's very ordinarily man. Even he didn't go to school. He received some religious teaching, and that's it. He knows how to perform a burial when people died, and he knows how to lead the prayer in the congregation. That's what he knows. He doesn't know the terrorism at all. Even I don't know if he can lead the light. That simple man, I know him personally. And so it is the bogus charge, but the message that the Chinese government wanted to give at that time is just scare the exiled Uyghur communities, and just implying that our arms and the legs are so strong and we can extend it anywhere, wherever you live, whatever the passport you hold, it doesn't matter. So that is the goal of Chinese government, to scare exiled Uyghurs from participating any activities that makes China upset. But the Chinese goal was not achieved, and the Uyghurs are still active. And we are still protesting, and we are still talking about the Chinese brutality, Chinese government's brutality. So Chinese government did not achieve anything, but it was that policy caused a lot of trouble and misery for one family, for sure.
Oh yeah, and actually I also see that kind of a parallel, because a lot of Chinese rhetoric always says about the Hong Kong separatism, but the 5 requests the people asking for, none of them is talking about Hong Kong separate from China. Yeah. it's just looking for a kind of an investigation about police brutality, about the direct election, the election, that kind of stuff. Nothing more than that. So
actually, if there is one force, is the separate force, it is the Communist Party of China. But because if you upset people, if you deprive the rights of the people, if you just all the time show the state force just to crush them, why I should stay with you? What's the motivation for me to trust you, to stay with you? So it is the Communist Party who did not give any trust to the people, who did not give any respect to the people, all the time just acting like a mafia without any rule. So that kind of policy actually is splitting the China. That's the reason Taiwan has a tough stand against China. That's the reason anti-China sentiment is growing everywhere. And if there's anything, just I really highly recommend the Communist Party officials look at the mirror and look at your policy. The people are not sheep or herds. They do not just blindfoldedly follow you. They have a conscience. They think what's right, what's wrong. They have the mind to just to make that distinction.
Okay, we are about time. So I just want to ask you a trivial question. And in this interview, we interchange between Xinjiang and East Turkestan. Okay, so I just want to know about the terminology, about the area. Why there is a term called East Turkestan? And also, what do you think about the name Chinese given to the region you are in, which is Xinjiang? So what do you think about it? Should we keep on saying that Xinjiang and use another terms like East Turkestan, and why is that?
The reason is, as Chinese Tangshu or Hanshu, there are enough records about this region. China claims we control now. China sent envoy to those regions in certain parts. And Uyghurs are Turkic people. Turkestan means land for Turkic people. Just like Pakistan or Kazakhstan means land for Kazakh people. And so today's East Turkestan and Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, those areas, since nearly more than 1,000 years inhabited by Turkic people. So all over those places are called Turkestan. Later on, Russians used Central Asia for those areas. And after Russia conquered the west part of the area, which was known as Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and divide those areas to different ethnic groups such as Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan. And so eastern part left, it is called East Turkestan. So in 1933, Uyghurs established their first republic of East Turkestan Republic. And then with the Soviets' help, it was crushed. And then secondly, on the same day of November 12th in 1944, established Second East Turkestan Republic and lived till 1949. And it was the domestic war between Kuomintang and Gongchandang during that period of time. And so basically, after the Second World War, after the Hiroshima nuclear drop, Japan surrendered, and Hitler or Germany defeated. So 5 countries became victorious from the Second World War. One is US against Japan, and China against Japan, Russia or Soviets against Hitler, and France and England. So 5 countries came together, had a secret meeting in today's somewhere in the Black Sea. Yalta,
yeah.
Right? And so Mongolia divided into 2 parts, Northern Mongolia, Southern Mongolia.
Yeah.
And the Turkestan area divided into 2 parts. One is Western Turkestan, controlled by Russia, and East Turkestan, controlled by China. And actually Xinjiang, that means firstly used by Manchus in 1884. Actually, the Chinese Communist government, they took the legacy of the Manchus and used that terminology. And if it is Basically, Chinese constitution says this is Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. So it is the Uyghur Autonomous Region. What is the name in Uyghur for their own homeland? That is East Turkestan. For China, maybe for Chinese, maybe it is Xinjiang.
Yeah.
For Mongols, it is Over Mogul.
Yeah.
They don't call Nemangu. For Tibetans, they don't call Shizang. They call a Pawa or a something in their native language. For Uyghurs, we call our land as East Turkestan in our native language. So Xinjiang is Chinese name, East Turkestan is the Uyghur name. As in permanent inhabitants of that land, we have the name in our language. Just like Hong Kongers call their home as Hong Kong, not Shanghai.
Yeah. Exactly.
People in Macau call their home as a Macau, not Oman.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that is this. For Canada, they call their home as Canada, not Canada.
Yeah.
So East Turkestan is the name originally from in the Uyghur language for their historic home. And the Xinjiang is the Chinese name given to describe that land as a new territory or a new frontier.
Yeah.
That is the difference.
So that is why we refer to the land as East Turkestan instead of Xinjiang then. Yeah. So finally, we have 4 minutes left. Maybe you mentioned about some of the connection with East Turkestan. You talk about your mother as being cut off the communication. I just wonder one thing. In the menu in the China cable, partly the stress is to keep the camp as secret as possible. But after all these things happens, it is impossible to make it secret actually. So what do you think personally? You have a personal connection with the area as well as the people in there. What is your personal opinion about the whole mess?
My personal opinion about the whole mess is just as it happened in Hong Kong, Chinese government will get another lesson from the Uyghurs and from the international communities, because in this world of digital information technology, in this world of digital connection, and in this world of human connection that is being increased, understanding of humanity is so common from continent to continent. One finger tip is enough to connect or send information to other people and to get other people involved. So in this time of connection, Chinese government miscalculated. Because Vegas rule does not work at this time. Whatever happens in Vegas does not live in Vegas. And the Xi Jinping is quite arrogant man. He is just illiterate man. And he thinks that whatever I said will be the reality. No, it is not going to be reality. Especially it is not acceptable because since the humanity coming to this point, and we have certain universal rules and values we all cherished and appreciated, just like human rights, basic freedom, religious freedom, mutual acceptance and respect to differences. Those are the human values. And so basically Chinese Communist Party under Xi Jinping wants to create one homogenic society, just man-made or manufactured kind of, or social engineering kind of. It is not going to work. And it is bringing a disaster. For Uyghurs' dilemma today, Uyghurs' suffering today, eventually will end the Chinese Communist Party rule. Because the Xi Jinping just miscalculated, and he thinks that I purchased number of head of states in neighboring countries, so I can control the Uyghurs. But you can buy out those head of states. How about the people? we are culturally connected, religiously connected. So your BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, everything connect East Turkestan to some other place, how you can ensure the safety of those investments. If today Uyghurs are not happy, the Xi Jinping won't go to sleep comfortably. That is my message to him.
Okay. 好啦，咁啊，今日嘅離地新聞時間差唔多啦。若果大家對我哋嘅節目有進一步嘅意見或者問題嘅話咧，可以去我哋嘅Facebook page Lady News LAYDAYNEWS 一個字咧就揾到我哋噶啦，喺 Facebook 度抄。咁我哋呢期嘅離地新聞咧係呢個2019年11月27號咧多倫多時間咧就傍晚6點，即係香港時間咧就係11月28號嘅5點咧就錄影嘅。咁啊，下星期咧就同大家再傾過。下星期再見，拜拜。